Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Daily Tip Show here on the Inspired Business TV channel. Now actually today is the last in the series 1 of this show, but don't worry, there is a series 2 coming. And today we're looking at social media, addicted or not. Have you found yourself, as we spoke about in episode 19, being distracted by social media? If so, then we're going to discuss today about some key fundamentals and identifiers to help you keep social media on track on your terms, and in order to help you have and deal with social media in a healthy way. My name is Gary Setterfield, and my co-host today is my good friend and business partner, Mr. Sukhi Wahiwala.
Hello team, how are you? It's so exciting to have you here again. I can't believe, Gary, that this is actually episode 20 of series 1.
I know, Sukhi, it's gone so quickly, and how much has happened? What have we discovered? Well, just in case you're wondering what we have actually covered, there is going to be a separate little topic later on, just to cover all the areas that we've gone through. But for now, Sukhi, I want to talk to you about social media. As we talked about in episode 19, social media is so good at keeping us updated, keeping us on track, and helping us get through the day. But it can be a distraction. So what are some key fundamentals that people can identify and use in order to help them stay on track?
Wow, Gary. When we were talking about this in episode 19, when we talk about distractions within the mind, as soon as we started to talk about this, we knew immediately we had to do a show on social media. So that's why we planned it on that time, at that particular time as well. Okay, so the key fundamentals that I would like to cover first, if we are talking about social media, is it an alien product? Is it something that's here to destroy us? Well, actually, in my opinion, when we're talking about things, in humble opinion, when we talk about things such as addictions and non-addictions, addictions is something that you can't live without, in essence. Now, social media is kind of becoming that, but if you're finding yourself going online and getting your fix of social media in the sense of dopamine and actually distraction within the work, starting something to watch something with 5 minutes in mind and then sitting there 45 minutes later and still kind of wanting to stay on social media, and I'm not going to mention any particular platform, this is because there is actually usually a neural engine actually sitting there learning your habits and making everything that they're showing you relevant to your mind and your thinking. So the depth of conversation, there's an absolute depth of entities and conversations and evidence online talking specifically about the engines that are being produced. So if you hark back to episode 13, when we spoke about DFT clarity and DFT focus, we showed you specifically the actual, what we call the 3-minute infinite loop of time wasting, where we actually naturally get distracted in our unconscious conscious mind. So this is when the mind actually naturally, if undetected or unconsciously left to its devices, would kind of every 3 minutes, actually distract ourselves from the current conscious task. Does that make sense, Gary?
Totally, Sukhi, and it's so, when you think about it, it happens so easily.
Yeah, exactly that. And so we're now going to I'm just going to enlighten something, and I'll call it the social media platforms. Have you noticed that the social media platforms run a video that you have accidentally just opened up your feed or your downline, and all of a sudden you've got this lovely video that you might want to watch that seems to be exactly what you want to watch. So you spend your time looking at it, watching it, and the next thing you know is it switches to another video that you also want to watch. It kind of scrolls up, mentioning no social media platform name. The reality is that if you time it, it actually shifts between the 2 minutes and 50 seconds to 3 minutes section. As soon as it comes to 250, it starts to roll you ready for the next video. So you don't actually realize that in your natural stage of 3 minutes of distraction, the other video has been beautifully seamed in, thus keeps you attracted to the house of social media, whichever it is, and you end up watching the second video, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. And if you notice, each one of these is approximation loops of 3 minutes, so it fits beautifully within your conscious concentration when it's not been planned by yourself. It's quite dangerous, that, don't you think, Gary?
Absolutely. And for anybody just listening to this, don't worry, we have got a power tip round at the end just to cover the areas that we're covering right now. Sukhi, back to you.
Thank you, Gary. So in essence, if you can now imagine this, I'm not sure if your brain's gone pop, when you're watching this video, the next video changes at exactly the natural time for you to get distracted. So you'd want another topic or something else to think about, and it shifts straight into the next video seamlessly. And the beautiful part of this is that you end up in this vortex of time where you're actually spending half an hour, 20 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, half a day watching stuff on the social platforms. So on these days, you can throw from your phone, you can put it onto your big televisions, and you can sit there watching feed after feed after feed. And somehow it seems to be always aligned with you. Very, very dangerous. Now, there are some serious programmers, and I won't mention any names in this episode for various reasons. Basically, those individuals who actually created that neuro engine to learn you as a human being, or to actually the AI in essence, to predict what your needs and what your learning patterns are and your zeros and your ones. Do you look at this for longer than 7 seconds, less than 7 seconds, etc. All of that neural understanding. And then what they do is that engine itself, those individuals who create the engines and put it into the social media platforms themselves stand aside saying, it's not what we visioned. We got involved thinking it better the world and humanity, but it's ended up not necessarily bettering the world and humanity. So there's a question that arises here, Gary. And what is the difference between a billboard advert that you drive past and social media adverts, the ones that are in your platforms that you're constantly loving to see? Well, if I could just poise that question and answer it to make it easy for everybody, there is a distinct difference, because a social media platform is designed for you. When you drive past a billboard, that billboard is fixed. It may well be in a perfect position for that kind of a sale, etc. But you yourself are driving past it upon your own terms at your own time. When you decide to go past it on a boulevard or a dual carriageway, etc. So as you pass it, it either catches your eye or it doesn't, depending on the strength of the advert itself. But your main focus is probably on your primary task of driving, biking, motorbiking, lorry driving, whatever that is, or walking. So you're not necessarily in that place to look for that advert or to absorb the content. Now, that means that you as an individual are random. So we're all individuals. We spoke about this very deeply within the DFT philosophy, where every individual, the map is not the territory, which means my version of the world is unique to myself. So I'm not actually in any which way possible kind of thinking that picture or that image up. Now, this is a future that's coming, by the way, and I'm about to talk about that in a moment. So what we've got basically is it's kind of random that I'm going to see that. But when you're on social media, what happens is that it's designed for you. So you are there to absorb content. You're in a social mindset. And the actual image that you see is 100% relevant to your previous interests and needs. So it's starting to predict you, which is a predictive engine. So this is getting very, very dangerous in the sense of that you're always being able to be seeing exactly what you want to see. Now, the same neural engine is soon going to be pushed into, there are some companies out there, which I can't mention the names right now because I'm privy to some information, where they're actually going to make billboards relevant to your beacon on your mobile device. So as this learns you and you drive past something, it realizes it's you, and it will basically change the advert. Now, that's obviously not going to be possible if you're in a car, because the advert just can't keep changing. But the principle is that if your line of sight is there, it will maybe send you a beacon to your phone, which then your phone at some stage will give you a ping and send you a video and an advert. This is all available. It's all technology that's there now, today, already. We're talking in 2020, but it's being implemented, and there are certain key things that are being looked at. So if I could just move one stage further, I can, Gary, just to clarify a bit deeper into how this functions within our real world. If you can imagine, if I'm, let's say, and I'm just going to use this as a framework of conversation, as a political conversation of left wing, right wing, being two completely opposites of each other. By no means am I subscribing myself or Gary into the end of this talk, and by no means is this conversation around left or right wing in any political agenda. But the point is, if one was a left-wing individual, again, not even outlining whatever, if I said you're over here, and the polarization was right-wing, what would happen is that you would actually, if you can imagine this, if you're only pushed 1 or 2 degrees away from your point of view every time you view a social media advert, you will, if you detest right wing, for example, or vice versa, every time you enter social media, it will show you something, it could show you something toward the opposite. And it's edging you towards the middle between both grounds, and even towards the other side, towards the opposite. So if I can turn this into colors, if I may, if you're in the space of liking, let's say, 2 vivid opposites, let's say red and green, you could take red and add a bit of green into it every 3 degrees. In essence, every time I saw an advert, it could tempt me. 1 minute I'd say, that's completely wrong, I agree with red. And the next thing you'll say, well, yeah, I get that. So green's a little bit like this. And you might say, well, I'm still red, but it's showing you a bit of red, green. And it goes on and it moves you across. So if you can imagine, it's so dangerous unconsciously. You're being infected, affected, and influenced in your social behavior. So it's a conformity and a control system that's holding people in place. So this within itself isn't the dopamine. This is the ruthlessness or the danger of being involved in social media. But if I could just move a little bit further into the actual ability or the opportunity that there is within social media, if that's possible as well. So back to the principle behind this is that we're being influenced and we're being affected in the context of our version of the world. Okay, so that's the power of it. And I'll go into much more depth when we get into series 2 of the actual Daily Tips show, Gary, which will be September onwards. We'll start to relook at the whole new phase of the next generational conversation. We'll be going deeper dives into smaller niches. So just to clarify this with reference to being affected and changed in our version of the world, there's the dopamine, the friendliness, the connection, the will to be wanted, the assumptions of friends online, not meeting in this current pandemic challenge where we're not physically meeting our friends so much and so often, if we're shielding, and our heart goes out to everybody who's been affected by COVID-19. The reality is that we are now using social platforms for our dopamine kick. So we may be at home and we feel lonely in essence. So we jump online to see who is there so we can meet them, talk to them, chat to them. But also we post out images and we then expect or accept, if nobody's watching them, looking at them, or even liking them, then we kind of feel, I suppose, a brand new way of feeling upset, sad about the fact that we're not so popular. So I hope this outlines these informations for yourself there, Gary. And if you would like, I'm happy to go through some tips that somebody could actually use to keep it healthier.
I think that would be great, because we're aware of the subliminal messaging that goes on in social media, and it would be really good, in order to keep people on point and focused, just a few tips to help them stay on track.
No problem. Okay, so very, very quick, fast, if I can. If I was to say to yourself, how do I access social media? Well, you don't find me roaming around on social media because when I've got nothing to do. So what I do is I have a purpose before. So step one is always to have a clear purpose of your access to social media on any platform. And the reason why we kept this very neutral is because in the next series, we'll go into much more depth with individual platforms. But in this particular case, it's just get clear, why am I going on to the social media platform? And in specific, keep razor focused, maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that you want to get done, no more than 3, but get very, very focused using the DFT from episode 13, which you'll see there. Please do watch it again. Go in to social media platforms based upon your terms. Go in, get your work done, and then come straight out. Now, this also means that if you hark back to episode 13 under DFT, if you want to be in a state where you would like to just spend wandering time within social media, align that and set a start and a stop time for that as well. I 100% put a timer on my phone or any device that's near me when I jump onto social media. I go specifically to deal with one thing: posting, reposting, sharing, commenting, discussing, and then I'm out straight away. So those are the kind of things that really, really help. That's kind of tip 1. Now, tip 2 is actually, if you're finding yourself in a situation where you've got nothing to do and then you jump onto social media and you just check your WhatsApp, your status, or whatever else it is without, sorry, my apologies for mentioning any names, but any of the social media informations, or WhatsApp is just, I see more as a texting platform. If you're checking them all the time, constantly, this is a signal to oneself to make sure that you pay attention to how long you spend on these machines. And if you look at the Apple ecosystem, they actually give you what we call screen time. Just to give you an indication, I would personally, if I found myself in that position where I was looking at my phone constantly, I'd go through an amnesty. I'd actually put the phone down and get my mindset away from having to pick that up to get any work done. Hope that helps. And I'm just going to give you one final action. Always jump onto social media based upon your own time schedule, not in between work. Get your DFT day working perfectly with the 70-20-10 principle of time schedule. So if 70% is your work day, 20% being your family time, and 10%, in this particular case, the tertiary being me time, you might be able to put the social media within the me time. Does that make sense as well? So you can actually turn around and communicate on your terms. Always, 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 please time it and try to ration how many days consistently you go on there. Also, one more thing I was going to share with yourself, because of the new posting mechanisms of daily updates and daily statuses. If you're going to do something of that sort of nature, literally put a timer on your phone at a set time to ping you to do a social status, and then come straight out of the system. So these are just very low-hanging fruits, and I hope they've been helpful. We didn't want to make this episode to be too long. I hope that assists in some way, but I'm really excited for episode 2 as well. But please do go back and check out all of those videos that we just mentioned. Over to you, Gary.
Sukhi, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, because so many people within the Inspired Tribe have talked to us, have been communicating with us on social media, and they just wanted to know what they needed to do in order to stay focused and stay on point, but on their terms. So I just wanted to go over the power tips. The power tips that we've mentioned, the roundup. We talked about power tip 1, addiction or non-addiction. Is this a distraction? Staying on social media and the neural engine. We then looked at power tip 2, which is all about going back and revisiting episode 13 of the DFT, and looked at the clarity and the loop of distraction. Then we talked about power tip 3, the social media platforms and how they run. How you start with a video, then you have another point, and then another point, and the runtime transition times and how they fit very conveniently with those distraction loops. Then we talked about power tip 4 and the vortex of time, how we can lose our time, get trapped within this social media bubble. And it's available anywhere, anytime, even on your TV at night times. Then in power tip 5, we looked at billboards versus social media. And were you aware that billboards quite soon could well be displaying the same as social media, being specific to your needs and your desires? And then we had power tip 6, was the maps, not the territory. that your version of the world is personal, and social media is designed around that to tailor to your requirements and the predictive neural engine. Then we looked at power tip 7, which is the opposing viewpoints, the left and the right, and how even just a small shift of 1 or 2% either way can influence you without you actually knowing it. That leads on, of course, to power tip 8 and the dopamine effect, the connection, how friends are now being connected via social media because of the current situation and the situation that we've had in the past. How the posting of images now gives you a response about your popularity or not, and how dangerous that can be. And then we finally came on to those influences and how to prevent yourself from losing it. How Sukhi accesses social media and his specific tips. First one, have a purpose and a reason for going on. Secondly, make sure that you have 3 areas to focus on when you go in there, 3 reasons to do it, and use start and stop times. His second tip within that was have an amnesty time so that you can have a break. Remember, addictions are about continuation. Having an amnesty breaks that continuation. And then the third tip was all about only jump on when you've made scheduled time to do so. Don't let social media and jumping onto the computer be part of your work time if you need to get things done. I hope you found that useful, and please remember, do comment down below your requirements. If you'd like any questions answered, then please do. Remember also to follow Sukhi on his official social media channel and on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And please share this with your friends, your family. Until the next episode in Series 2, stay safe, take care, and thanks for joining us for Series 1. See you shortly for Series 2. Bye.